What does it feel like to know a thief can take away your peace because your lack of boundaries gave them permission? You're just the gift that keeps on giving, a Santa Claus with no return. No excuse should excuse you for not putting yourself first. What? Are you scared of your past or something? When you're scared your friend's going to laugh or something? Because what you feel, you're going to attract. So if you assume or consume the idea that you are lacking, that's exactly what you'll be waking up and having. Absence for breakfast, you're a habitual skeptic and a visual paradox being the culprit in questioned. But you keep looking for someone else to blame. You keep looking for someone else to explain why equivalent exchange doesn't matter to you, why your peace of mind won't reconcile with you. God complex with no God inside of you.
I love it. Thank you so much for opening up the show that way.
Yeah.
Welcome, Salayeh. I really appreciate you being on this show. I'm looking forward to this conversation, and I'm trying. I'm still trying to. I think we somehow came like we got connected through Instagram,
Yes.
just finding each other kind of thing. And then
Yeah. Just
I love what you're doing. I totally love what you're doing, and I think that we need more of it to begin with, and we definitely need more of it in our construction industry, and all industries.
yeah. For sure. For sure. It's been great being invited. And yeah, I think we found each other on Instagram. And yeah, I'm
And
trying to get a vibe of what you guys do. And it's been awesome.
thank you. You want to let the listeners know what part of the world you're in?
I am in Perth, Western Australia.
Okay, and
And it's like,
we're obviously in Toronto, Ontario. So we're having a conversation that's basically you're 12 hours ahead of us or 13 hours ahead of us.
yeah,
12.
12 at 6 o'clock in the morning
Yeah,
here.
6 o'clock in the morning there. All right, so we're actually going to talk a lot about. I mean, I want to touch upon. You've got so much. I don't even know if we're going to get to all of it, but I do want to talk about just coaching and talk about sex and money and intimacy and relationships. But you also work with breath work and mindful activities. You work with fear and trauma, self sabotage. That's a big one for myself. You're a wealth coach, anxiety, anger, and depression. And I want to know more about walk and talk therapy. I want to talk about the way you've built up a creative and expressive therapy. And then, I mean, there's still a bunch more. You still haven't, like, that's just half of it, what we're going to talk about. But I kind of want you to take us where you want to go and where you want to begin with. Obviously, the majority of our listeners are male. You're talking from a wide range, probably late teens to 60s, 70s. There's a handful of older gentlemen that are listening, but the bulk of our listeners are those younger men. We do have a lot of women
Okay.
listening as well too. But everybody is just trying to stay human, and everyone's just trying to look for some sort of happiness and try to make their lives better, whether that's personally, professionally. So obviously, I'm just trying to figure out, where do we begin?
I think just on what you just said then, everyone's trying to get to a place of happiness.
I know
And I
I am.
think, yeah, and I think if we just learn to accept that life is a flow and that it's up and down, and there's no place to get to, right? There's just nowhere to get to. We just got to be in the moment. And I think that's the hardest thing. Out of everything I do, it always comes back to being in the present moment. How do I get into the present moment? Because we can only really create from the now. And then
How
when when we're not doing that, we're creating sort of from the past or projecting to the future.
How do we, am I wrong to say that the older we get, the more difficult the downs feel? Why is that?
Oh gosh. Yes. Or, listen, I've got children, right? So when I watch my children's emotions, they seem pretty extreme, because they just deal with them straight away. But I feel, yeah, we've got history. Yeah. As we get older, our history compounds and compacts. And so whatever we've gone through as a child, if it's not dealt with, it just compounds in all our life situations, the
How,
relationships we attract.
why as humans, why do we hang on to the past so badly?
Um, because it's the story of who we believe we are. It's kind of we believe that we are this thing, and so stepping out to something different is scary. Everything I feel is around safety and security in our life. Like everything's around safety, right?
Do you think
trying to
it's
just feel safe.
do you think it's more so men are trying to achieve what they possibly can and they don't live up to
Ah,
their own personal expectations?
ooh, ooh, see, that's layered, isn't it?
Yeah.
We operate differently. Men and women are so different, and I think that's one thing we need to be aware of. We are not alike.
Yeah.
Yeah, men are completely different to women, and we need to respect each one of that. But men, um, there's a lot of responsibility for men. We've come in and putting so much responsibility on men. It's and who they've been raised by. Their fathers have been doing the best they can. Generational trauma, and I say generational trauma because it might not. Trauma is subjective, right? What's trauma for me is not for you. But today, there's people like me. Yeah, there's counselors, there's coaches, there's people who there's peer models. In our timeline before, there was no one for our fathers and our grandfathers. They couldn't go sitting down talking about their feelings. There was no psychologists or counselors per se until Freud and all of those came along. So they had to deal with their emotions. So when we're going through life and we're feeling all of these emotions that we don't really know what they are, that we're just dealing with them, at least this day and age we can talk to people about it, or there's a lot more help out there.
Did
But I
most
do believe the generational, right? It comes down.
did most of us just suppress it, or did most of us just learn better ways of suppressing it?
Yeah, this is both,
Okay.
both.
That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of our generation now, and people have their problems and they're just compound, like you said, and they've just figured out how to suppress it, how to put it to the side and just not really deal with it. But that it just compounds. It's just going to get worse and worse if you don't confront it.
100%. In so many ways, yeah. So how you show up in the world, for men, there's a lot of pressure to be a certain way, and being with their emotions is challenging. A lot of men, we always say about, oh, men need to be back with their emotions, but that's not as easy as said, right? Because we're not built that way. So even tapping into our emotions for a man is challenging. To feel safe and to feel secure. Again, what kind of fathering did he have? What kind of mother did he have to build those belief systems? And I think every person is different, but there's a lot of pressure out there for men to behave and be the ones that get everything done and to hold it all together. And I feel, Manny, the more men I work with, the more, and I really mean this in love, I fall in love with the masculine so much, with men so much, because when you really get to know a man and you create a safe space, they're extraordinary humans, not just on the outside, not because they just achieve and they're so single focused, but they're so deep. Yeah, you just got to give them the safety and the safety and the security for them to just be with their emotions and to learn that when they let their emotions out a little bit, nothing happens. There's no judgments happen. They haven't opened up so much vulnerability that they feel ashamed. So it's just slowly but surely and safely. And I feel as soon as you do that, you get to really see the depth of a man.
I totally agree.
I don't.
Sorry. I'd love to get your thoughts on, I know you're talking about counseling and coaching of men and the four key things that you actually address, which are sex, money, intimacy, and relationships. Can you give us an order what you think it should be, but what men think it is to them, those four parts of their lives?
So I think men, and to identify, feel like a healthy identity, they need to, I mean, I'm not a man, right? So I've got to be careful. I'm not a man, but this is just what I see, is they need to feel that they've got purpose and there's some security around them in order to, so they need the money, they need the security, the money, then they go into intimacy. Sex is very different for men as it is for women, because men can have sex and not be making love.
Yep.
So I feel men come into this world feeling that they've got a lot of pressure to be and have a lot of money so they can feel safe and secure to be in a relationship. And so for me, it's like, if they learn to be intimate with themselves, they learn to be with their emotions and understand themselves, then the person they're becoming out there is different to them having to just go out and make money. So I feel like it's a self journey. It's a personal journey of getting to know themselves. Yeah. So understanding their emotions, understanding how they react to the world, and feeling safe within themselves. I do believe, though, unless a man feels safe and secure with financials and purpose, he can't really be intimate or have the true intimacy that women require.
Yeah. I agree with you totally. And I was going to just ask you, but I think you just answered. Is like, is a loss of a relationship far worse than a loss of a financial situation? But it's actually, I feel that as a man, the loss of finance is far harder on a man than it is the loss of a relationship, because they can somehow, because there's that providing aspect of a man. And that's why,
because you've naturally got that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. So, I mean, are you,
and it's also,
sorry,
it's going to be a delay.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm a talker, so
go. Don't worry. Sorry, I interrupt you. Yeah.
No. And I was going to say with that, there's a societal pressure that we put on men. You are naturally the providers, but because you naturally have that providing instinct, we then put so much expectation on men. Yeah. And I believe, for women, there's this whole matriarchal, patriarchal system happening where we're having to operate in a man's world. It's starting to change because there's people like me, and I'm more holistic and intuitive. I'm bringing the feminine in, right? So I'm bringing in a different mindset. But we are in a world where women have been having to be in a man's world, and we don't operate that way. We struggle with that way, to be honest.
Is it possible to just be both? Like, can you have that transfer where it's like a man can be softer, a woman can be more motivated and thrive and just be as competitive as a man, and vice versa? Can't we just, both of us, be going down the same path? Is that success in a relationship? Is it success in a marriage? Success in a family dynamic? Is that possibility?
Ooh, I love it. Interdependence. From codependence, independence to interdependence. So I feel like this is where, if you look at the world, there's more single parents than ever before now in the world, right?
Yeah.
So many more. And I believe that's the system starting to break down, slowly. Of women, we need to do what we do in our realm. We're in Tantra, we're 30% masculine, 70% feminine. Men are 30% feminine, 70% masculine. So we've got both the masculine and feminine within us. And I feel that's the journey, right? We're always trying to find some kind of equilibrium. And we're trying to be in this world because we both hold both those male, masculine, feminine identities within us. So we're trying to equalize ourselves.
It's interesting.
It's not easy, right?
No, it's not. It's interesting you bring that up, because I read somewhere recently how, I think in the last 30 or 40 years, a woman shaking hands with somebody else, the amount of pressure that she's been applying has been increasing with time, versus a man shaking a hand with somebody else has actually been decreasing in pressure. So it's just a subtle thing, but it's just really ironic that men have become that way, women have become that way, and and that translates to business, that translates to sales and working and creating relationships and business and everything like that. And just that handshake itself says so much, that men have become softer, women have become, I guess, stronger in that way, but it's just business. It's strictly they're being they're pulling their weight kind of thing, and men are, I guess, are not.
Yeah, and even that, I was thinking, when I used to meet men, I'd have a firmer handshake, and it'd be in my mind to have a firmer handshake, many, many years ago, until I started realizing that's it, me trying to be in a man's world. So yeah, it's all these subtle things. And even I feel we're going through a bit of imbalance at the moment, but I do believe we're heading the right way. There are more men are doing more work on themselves, not because they're feeling pressure, because they know that they've got all these emotions and things aren't working. So like, even if they do go out and get the amazing job, they might not have the relationship that they're attracting. So it's like it always comes back to within, right? Every one of us has to go within at some time of our life, or we don't. Yeah. And if we don't, we drink ourselves away, or we take drugs, or we watch porn, or we go for social media, or we go and buy 100 pairs of stiletto heels, or we eat too much food, or, every time. Those are the signs that we have to go within. When we can't feel calm and we're wanting more, or we can't be with ourselves, or we can't be quiet, have to go within.
Why do men put themselves last on their list regarding life and their obligations? They do it.
Burden of responsibility, right?
Yeah.
They do.
They do it.
But then, in some ways, I could have an argument with women with this, right? They would say, well, they don't. They always put themselves first.
I disagree. They are always putting themselves last. They're always putting their work, their friends, their family, their children, their other priorities, and then they forget, what about me? They totally and always forget them.
Yeah. Yeah. And asking for a man to sit still and just have a look at his emotions is a really challenging thing.
Yeah.
So that is putting himself last, right? I'm fine. I don't need that. And it's like, yeah, a lot. Yeah. And it's like, being with their emotions is challenging. Knowing who they are, I think, is even more a challenge. Like that, who am I? Which is a challenge for all of us.
How can one, I love where this is going. I really love where this is going, because the thing is, I've been doing the show for 5 years, and I get a lot of men reaching out to me and bringing up these points, and as if I know the answer, and I don't. I speak to people like you. You have a better grasp of these situations. But I mean, how do we ask a man that's in this situation and has all this responsibility, how do we ask him to look at him first and try to understand that he's still a part of the equation? I mean, it's heart-wrenching sometimes when I have conversations with certain people that work in the industry, and they are talking about suicide. They are talking about addiction. Yeah. They are talking about these serious things. And then I know recently we just had Men's Health Month, which is June. I don't know if it's the same with you guys, if June is, okay, so it is, right? And it's just, a lot of men in the industry they put light on it and they bring it up, and I brought it up and I bring it up throughout the whole month as well. But I have a hard time myself, or even telling other men how to make themselves first. And my only thought is you got to somehow try to figure out how to fix you first, because there is something broken with you. You just have to figure out what it is and how to fix it. Yeah.
And that fix word, though, is an interesting word, right? Because men like to fix.
That's why.
And so if they logically, it's the end of the other day, we are right and left sides, creative and logical. And men tend to veer more to the logical, the left logical, instead of maybe learning. And they say the feminine right, creative, and men are very logical. So, we need a bit of both in our life. If everything's just black and white thinking, then we're using our brain to always think. And we are mind and body, body, and soul, depending on what you believe, right? So we have to bring the body into things. We have to bring a little bit of the softer, the feminine, a bit more creative, rather than just it being that direct black and white. So on one way, there's that, it's like, who am I? Like, what are my values? How was I raised? And with those values that I were raised in the same as how I feel now? Are my belief systems mine? It's a huge one. Are they mine? Or have I taken them on from somewhere else? Yeah. And what do I love to do apart from being the provider? And how do I get men to acknowledge that? Well, look at their life. If they're not happy and they're using it and they're going out and, drinking themselves silly, or just always working, but inside they're not happy and their relationships are reflecting back to them, or they're not in relationships because they're scared of rejection and abandonment, which is a massive one. You know, a lot of men have casual because of the rejection and abandonment, and underneath rejection and abandonment is safety. And it comes back full circle again of a man not being safe to express his emotions, safe to trust. And that comes through from belief systems and values, right?
It does. In your studies, or when you've been speaking to a lot in counseling, a lot of people, men and women, at what age is the main period in someone's life when they start questioning their purpose? When did when does that tough question come? And actually, I don't know too many people that actually answer it. I don't think they realize what their purpose is, and they go through a lot of life before they realize what it is.
So, and I believe that's what purpose is, you know, as in it's creating in the moment. It's like, most importantly, oh God, you can answer this for me, Manny, because you're a guy. Like, you know, do you do what you love?
Using digital platforms in our industry is becoming more common, especially among the young folks, because it improves efficiency, prevents mistakes, and overall makes our lives as contractors easier. This is why we partnered with Connect Team, a platform built to manage, train, and communicate with your team. Connect Team's desktop version gives managers a live overview of the business to track work hours, create schedules, make sure the business meets compliance, and so much more. Employees just download the app to their mobile to clock in and out, share safety reports, and get updates all in one place, ensuring they've got what they need to perform at their best. Connect Team has a free plan and a 14-day free trial. Try them today by checking out the link in the show notes. I try.
Yeah, and that's a massive thing.
I try,
and
right?
so you might be one of the lucky ones, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of men go out knowing that they've got to provide and having to make money, because money is status and money gives them their self-worth. So firstly, it's like, do you love what you're doing? You know, there's a lot of jobs out here that people have to do. God, we're so grateful for all the crappy jobs that we wouldn't want to do, right? But somebody's always doing them. But at the end of the day, do you love what you're doing? And if it's not, okay, it can be temporary. We've also been built in this mindset that, well, that's a dream. You know, we might love doing this, but that's not realistic. And kind of disagree. I mean, I do understand there's jobs in the world that people have to do, but do what you love. And purpose is always creating. I don't believe that it is a purpose. I had something in me. It's like something I love. It's a passion that I loved, and I went through. You know, I was doing something very differently to what I was doing at the first beginning of the first part of my life. I was doing something very different to what I'm doing now. But this internal purpose in here for me was, what do I love to do? What is it that I find interesting? What is it that like sparks that bit of passion in me? And then I just started following that. So purpose, I feel, is just within us, but it's always unfolding. And where does it start? You know, I got a 16-year-old boy, and I'm watching him now, you know, and I'm watching that already. I'm watching that start to tick now in his brain. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? What's my long? And I've been so rigid. I mean, so like committed of like, just what do you love to do? And just start there. Yeah, because you could change in another 10 years. You might change. We all do. So I feel not to put so much pressure on yourself, and just start with doing what you love. I think it starts from a young age. I feel it starts at, I've seen a shift in my son in the last 3 months since he's turned 16. It's an interesting thing to watch. I've seen things start turning a little bit faster for him now. And so, you know, 16, it could even start as young as.
Do we look at purpose around the same time we start questioning whether or not we should give up on our dreams? I kind of feel that speed bump in life happens around the same time.
100, and depending on the parents, right?
Yes.
Like what belief systems and is, you know, has the parent,
they project.
Is the parent doing what they love? Yeah. They project. Is the parent doing what they love? Have they had their dreams crushed, and they just, and are they, you know, empowering their children to go, hey, give it all you got, just keep an eye on the ball, you know, and it will do whatever it's supposed to do. As long as you keep your part of it, then it'll go wherever it's supposed to go, but not have so much expectation as well, loose. Yeah. Like, having a direction and a focus, and let it mold into how it's supposed to mold. That not how it being this direct, it has to be rigid. That, but our parents are us as parents are responsible, I feel, for that, turning that little switch off for sure. And I'm not putting it's not like a blame.
No.
It's unconscious. It's a lot of it's unconscious because they don't want their child to fail or feel sad or not get what they want and feel disheartened. But not doing it is going to create them not being happy,
Salayeh, I just want to ask you, as we get older, like I guess when we're younger, even with your son being in his teens, and I remember being in my teens and my 20s, I had a purpose, I was creative, I was going down a path. But when I was younger in my 20s, that path was straight. It was a direct line. Like you were focused and you were driven to get to that. But as you get older and you have maybe failed relationships or failed marriages or loss of employment or what have you, that purpose, that path starts to veer off. So then I don't know anybody that gets older and has been through hard times. It doesn't become a straight line anymore. It gets you to the left, it gets you to the right, and it keeps on moving. But the thing is, I think we quickly forget that it still moves forward. It doesn't go back. Yeah. It may go to the left, it may go to the right, but it still moves forward. So it's just not a direct line anymore. And there might be a reason behind that, may be going to one way and to another way. Maybe you weren't designed to go on a direct path right to it.
Exactly. Maybe. And we've always got choice, right? So, it depends on what we're feeling. And again, it comes back to this present moment mindfulness thing again, right? So it's like learning. I think one of the best advice I can give to everybody is learn to love being alone. And I don't mean alone as in, sort of kicking in your relationships. I mean, learn to be alone with yourself. And learn to speak to that being with aloneness as opposed to loneliness.
Yes.
Because we're in relationships, but most of us are still lonely because we started off relationships because we're never shown how to be in relationships.
Nobody
from the wrong beliefs. No one teaches us, right? No one teaches our children about healthy sexuality. No one teaches us about what relationships. We learn from our environment. We learn from social media these days. So we run into relationships blindly. And so, it's like, do I even like the people that I'm with now? And why? And if we're taught how to be in a more healthy, conscious environment before we start relationships, then I think the world would look a lot differently, right? And so for me, if you come full circle, that would be learning to be alone with ourselves, because we go out, we're so codependent, we go out to get the relationship to fix the feeling that we have inside, or we're programmed that we do need to be in a relationship, but we're programmed to go out, get married, get kids, get the house, get the car, but what is the point of all of that if we don't even have some kind of peace inside of us, or we can be alone with ourselves? Powerful. I don't know many people that can be alone with themselves without this going off and without them sabotaging themselves and that inner critic destroying them and that uncomfortableness of being alone. It's a massive thing. Almost every person that crosses my path, the very first thing is they're like, how do you feel like being alone? What do you like with yourself? What happens when you're alone with yourself? Oh, I'm not alone with myself most of the time. What do you mean? Oh no, if I sit alone, I've got to do something. I've got things going around. People can't be alone with themselves. That's a great start.
Some of the best things that I've experienced in life, and because of alone, because you're right, there's a difference between alone and loneliness. There's a massive difference between the two. But what I discovered is when I started traveling by myself, I got tired of asking people if it was somebody that was in my life intimately, if they could go, if they wanted to go, if they didn't want to go. And I just got tired of being questioned or rejected or not. I can't go now. We have to book it or wait. And I got to the point where, forget it. I'm booking it. I'm gone. And I started traveling alone. And I actually started traveling alone around my birthday month. And I wanted to be somewhere else on my birthday and meeting strangers and speaking to strangers and just doing that. And I felt I never felt alone by doing that.
Yeah.
But I was discovering
Yeah.
so much about myself by doing that. And I miss it
Yeah.
because I
And
haven't
look
done
at
it
you.
in 3 years because of the way the world's been right now. But I mean, yeah, you discover quite a bit doing that.
And maybe because you do this as a part of your life's work now,
Yeah.
this is another part because you can't actually do it in person. So you do it here. So you connect, right? You yourself are a connector. You are a person that needs to connect and communicate and spread information. So that's what you were doing. So even though you can't do it in person, you're doing it in person.
Yeah. Which is
And that, again,
amazing.
so that's like, okay, so that comes back to who are you?
Yeah.
And this is one of your core values. What are one of your core values? I like to communicate. I like to inspire. I like to, listen to other opinions, and which I think is a really powerful space, right? That if you can be one of these people that has all these different viewpoints, and you just sit with those viewpoints without you having an opinion, that's powerful.
It
Like,
is.
look at the world today. We have government systems that want you to be this way. But, when you can have a worldview that's looking at all ways and still be okay with it, it's a powerful space to be.
But they're designed to communicate. Humans are designed to
Yeah.
interact. Whether or not you can speak each other's language, you're still designed to communicate. That's what I do
Yeah.
love about it, right? And I've always joked that if I were to travel around the world and try to carry a conversation with somebody that works in the construction industry, I will be able to communicate with that person, even though we do not speak each other's language. I know it for a fact I'll be able to communicate with that person. It's just human nature to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. 90%, I think it's nonverbal, right?
Yes, exactly.
And I don't even know. It's like 92% nonverbal,
We read it, we see it, we feel it.
We feel it. We feel it first, believe it or not. We feel it, then it goes to our brain, then our body has a reaction. Like, we feel things first. And that's, we're talking about men, that little point there. We don't think first, we feel first.
So why is
if you
it?
can get to,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, carry on. No, carry on.
No, I was just going to ask you. It's just, I know that you deal with a lot of anxiety and anger and depression. And I mean, I'll say it's almost a typical man that's his life is not going the way it's supposed to be going, I guess, the way it was designed or what have you. And why is it that the majority of men that I have seen have that compound of anxiety and anger and depression turn to a vice? And these days, it's some sort of substance abuse, whether it be alcoholism or it could be drugs, or it could be what have you. But why is it that they do that? Why is that? Is it just numbing? Is it like, why do they turn to those?
Yeah. And, you can think of like anger as suppressed creativity, but under anger is pain and sadness. And what is that pain and sadness? That's where you're trying to ask a man to go deeper. And I think that's where we have to have a bit of patience. And again, it comes to safety. It's like, what is it you're running from? What is it you're running to? What is it? There'll be something inside a man that they're trying to get away from. And most of the time that's emotions, because they don't really know what it is. They don't know what they're running from, or they don't know what it is, but it's uncomfortable. So if you can create that tiny bit of window or safety or time or patience where they just slow down and just, try to get them to, regulate their nervous system and understand what their nervous system is. Asking a man how he feels is a really conflicting thing. How do you actually feel? What's going on inside your body? And I think that's where we're starting. We're trying to get men to just actually be present, feel what's happening in their body, differentiate to what's happening in their mind, to their body, to their heart rate, to their feelings and their emotions. So it's a complex thing, but it's literally trying to slow a man down enough that he can start being aware of himself. And yeah, men are overrepresented in the criminal justice system, suicide. It's and that's the brain as well, right? That's the beautiful, direct, one single focused, which is beautiful in relationships, but it can be self-destructive when it means you're running away from yourself.
And I mean, I've had my ups and downs through both of my careers that I've tackled. And I think the way that I sometimes got out of the downs was I started paying attention to how I felt or what I did at the beginning of either career, where I started finding, I guess, happiness in those moments. And I started realizing the
Oof.
simplicity of that happiness in the beginning.
Yeah.
And for a split second there, I realized that I didn't have any of that. But then all of a sudden you think for a split second, wait a minute, there was happiness there at that very moment. I was thrilled and excited about this simple act in my life, whether it was swinging a hammer or whether it was just picking up kids or whether it was anything. It could have been just changing a tire. Just there was happiness there. You can't forget about those simple moments in life to bring you back.
Oh, beautiful right there. And however you start something, right? They say even when you're in a business, how you start something, the energy you start it with is what's going to push it through, right? So if you feel excited, if you can keep with that feeling, and again, it's like right now, right? You and I, we might be different sort of times away from each other, but right now, you and I are having this beautiful conversation,
Yeah.
right? That's right now. That's happening right now. Now, when you're asking me questions, I'm flicking to the past. I'm thinking to the future, but I'm still trying to be, and then in the present moment.
Yeah.
And if we can be just the mindfulness is like the greatest gift. And the only thing I feel we've got to learn in this whole life is to be present in the now. And how do we do that? There's simple things like when you walk into a room, close your eyes, open your eyes, and count 5 things. Just keep bringing yourself and learning to bring yourself back to the present moment. Meditation has saved my life. Honestly, every day I meditate. And even if it's like 6 minutes or 7 minutes or 8 minutes, and it doesn't have to be in a pose, it's just about just being in the present moment, because we can create from the now. Like, so you and I are having this beautiful conversation. So how am I feeling right now? Well, yeah, I'm kind of like, God, I'm having this conversation with this guy in Canada and it's pretty cool, right? And so I'm in this present moment.
We,
Yeah.
I
And
love,
that's it. So
yeah, I love that you brought up meditation. It's just, I've been reading about it. I wanted to learn more about it. I know a few people that are in the industry that actually do it and have seen dramatic differences in their lives, like dramatic. And how would you describe it to somebody that has not tried it or wants to try it, wants to try to understand it, where it's not necessarily you're sitting in a certain pose and you have your palms up or whatever. That is meditation, but it's not meditation. So how would you explain it to somebody that is curious about it?
so you just said it perfectly. You don't have to sit in a pose. Even like, what we were saying about walk and talk,
Yeah.
men like to move, right? Men can process things when they're maybe moving or not looking direct. So even walking and talking is a meditation, as long as you're doing it peacefully and you've got, you're actually just with yourself. It took a while for me to get into meditation, because when I started it, the mind was a bit of a chatter, but I start with 3 to 6 minutes. You don't have to sit and pose. You can just be observing your thoughts. Just sit and close your eyes and observe. And instead of like beating yourself up, because people think that meditation is, oh my God, every time I'm thinking of something, I shouldn't be thinking something. No, meditation is observing your thoughts. That's meditation. So even if you close your eyes, and you could be saying to yourself, oh God, I got lots of chatter going on here. And you just sit and observe. What we're trying to do is separate our being to our brain, right? We rely so much on this powerful brain of ours, but it's here to support us. It's not here to direct us. So our knowing, and that's where you start to separate. Your thoughts are not you. Yeah, they're just like a computer system. It's just, your thoughts are just a process. Your brain is just there to support you. So you're trying to have observant thoughts, observe your thoughts, so you can actually know how you're feeling. And that sounds complicated, but if you just start 3 minutes a day for a week, go up to 5 minutes a day, so you can just be with yourself. Start off that small and simply observe your thoughts. That starts to be meditation. When you get to be aware of your thoughts, you begin to put a little bit of separation. So hang on a minute, I'm not just my thoughts. there's more going on here because you were observing your thoughts. So what are your thoughts? And even that little bit of separation can calm you down a little bit.
Is it more difficult these days to do it with so much noise going on, whether our noise coming from our phones, our noise coming from our personal, professional lives, our noise just coming from everywhere? It just seems like it makes it more difficult.
Yeah, which makes it even more important to do, right?
To do it, yes. I totally agree.
So even before you go to bed, like go to bed and just be in the dark in your bedroom. Don't, and even if you just go drifting off to sleep, just have a conversation with what's going on with your thoughts. Like if you can create that little bit of separation, that you then have more control on your thoughts because you're trying to separate. Because like, who is that, the voice in our heads? What is that? It's the, it's the observing the observer. And it's just learning to observe your thoughts. And that is meditation, because when you observe your thoughts and you see them from it, you can like, hang on, I'm watching my thoughts. Then you become the one that's in control. And then when you're in control, your brain is not taking over and not controlling. You've got control of that.
Is it easier or better or to combine it with some breath work? If you prepare yourself with some breath work beforehand to kind of get into the mind space?
Yeah, no, so when I say breath work, yeah, so even square breathing is powerful. And that's just, there's so many different types of breath work. There's Wim Hof breath work, which is quite intense and maybe not for everybody, People can go look up that incredible man though, because, he's phenomenal.
Yes.
But just breath work as in, breathing in for like 6, holding it for 6, breathing out for 6 or 5, whatever the minutes feels for you, breathing in for 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, and doing that square breathing is really helpful. Breath is everything. Breath is how we breathe. If you actually have even the people in your office right now, it'd be quite interesting. Stop them and have a look how they breathe. Yeah. Are people breathing through their chest? Because as soon as you're breathing through your chest, you're activating your nervous system. So you could either be hyper-regulated or hypo-regulated. So it's like if you, the very first thing I do whenever I see anybody, as soon as they walk in the door, I ask to see how they breathe in. Very first thing I do. How do you breathe? How are you breathing? Are you breathing through your belly, or are you breathing through your chest and activating your fight, flight, freeze, fawn, block response, right? Breathing. And if you can learn to breathe through your belly, and before you do anything, take a breath. Before you go into anywhere, take a breath, So yeah, breathing is everything.
There's so many things that I've been suggesting to a lot of listeners that I've been doing. I probably started doing these things in my 40s and now leading into my 50s. It's just the sun, breathing, just starting the day with gratitude, things like that. It's just things that you weren't doing when you were in your 20s because it was just go, 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 go. And 20s and 30-year-olds, that's what they're doing right now. They just go. But I think if you were to stop and, for lack of a better term, smell the roses, just stop and just pay attention to yourself. Using digital platforms in our industry is becoming more common, especially among the young folks, because it improves efficiency, prevents mistakes, and overall makes our lives as contractors easier. This is why we partnered with Connect Team, a platform built to manage, train, and communicate with your team. Connect Team's desktop version gives managers a live overview of the business to track work hours, create schedules, make sure the business meets compliance, and so much more. Employees just download the app to their mobile to clock in and out, share safety reports, and get updates all in one place, ensuring they've got what they need to perform at their best. Connect Team has a free plan and a 14-day free trial. Try them today by checking out the link in the show notes.
Yeah, it's huge. I got my kids meditating, my son not so much now, but he's actually going back into it, which is interesting. But he boycotted it for a while. But I had my kids meditating for many years. My daughter was 6 when I started with her, and she would meditate and then she'd wake up, she'd go, I can't feel my arms and legs, but she was still talking.
Yes.
It was like so powerful, right? Because they could get into that meditative space, open their eyes, and they're still floating. So they were still in that beautiful space. So, and my son, they both did it meditating for a while, for years actually, because they loved it. And then my son got, it was too cool.
You'll come back to it.
So yeah, yeah, yeah. But meditation and being gratitude, huge, huge. Just being grateful for every night I go to bed. I'm grateful for my bed. I'm grateful for the running water. I'm grateful for the car outside. I'm grateful for the money in my bank. I'm grateful for my children. I'm grateful for the food. It comes naturally to me now because I really want to be in that. So gratefulness actually creates peace and harmony inside. So that's huge. Breath work. Yeah, being in nature, grounding. Sounds
Yes.
everyone thinks it's very hippie,
No,
but
it's
it's
not.
not. We're
It's not.
we're energy, right? The world is energy. So if you just ground with bare feet, because in being in nature is really challenging for people because we're in this cosmopolitan, this concrete jungle that we live in. So going to nature and just being with the water, just being in the bush is really important. This is when you and I might have been doing this for a while, and you just take it for granted. It's part of my process in life, right? So again, it's coming down to that: gratitude, breathing, being in nature, turning off your phones. Don't take your phones with you.
Nope.
Or leave them in the car.
Yeah,
life is busy, but you have to but you can give yourself, right? No excuses. Everyone puts this time constraint, but you can give yourself 10 minutes in the morning or 10 minutes at night. You can definitely do that.
it will make your day completely different.
Huge.
Completely. And
How you see the world,
positive.
because then you're happier
Yes.
and more present and more allowing with what happens within you, because you've just come back down to yourself. It's really it's interesting how the world pushes us away from the one thing, the most simple thing: breathing. We learn to breathe properly, we calm our anxiety down easily 40%, 30-40%, if we learn how to breathe properly. Just from, instead of breathing through our chest, if we just slow it down and breathe through our belly, that actually calms us down by about 40%. Before you go into any environment, close your eyes, open your eyes.
It does.
Count 5 things in the room. That actually brings you into the present moment. Yeah, learning how to breathe. And all these little things, massive changes, and the most simple things. And I think that's what you're saying something there, which is really important. We think we make things more complicated than what they actually are.
Yeah.
And if we can just go down to that changes everything in our day.
Does an adult self-sabotage because there are inner child traumas? Are they connected?
Yeah. A lot of the emotions that we bring in, a lot of the emotions we are responded to as an adult are just maybe from our childhood. Yeah. They are trauma memories or memories from our childhood that we bring into the present moment. So yes. And we've got to be careful, again, I don't condone any kind of abuse or violence, but I suppose I try to teach compassion with people that come to me, not condoning, but just compassion for where our families were before us. They were doing the best they can. And yes, I'm not talking about people who abuse or hurt, but again, underneath all of that, there's pain. But it's just more having a level of compassion about where we've come from. And learning that we want to blame. There's a lot of us that want to blame, and we have accountability and responsibility for what's happened to us as a child, that we weren't able to control it, and it was things out of our control. But right now we get to choose how we are in this moment today. So we want to be able to make peace with what's happened to us as a child, and move through, so that the adult in us can lead as opposed to the wounded child. I do inner child work. It's really important. But most of the stuff that I'm trying to bring forward is that you've got control of your life right now. You know, your past and what your parents did, I get it, but that's not actually happening to you now. So you get to choose your life from now. You get to allow the inner child in us to play and still play. Oh my gosh, how important is play?
Yes.
And I don't mean play as in self-destruction. I mean play as in love the simple things in life, yeah, and enjoy and do things that we love. But we're trying to allow the wounded child to become the mature adult that we lead right now. We lead, because we can get stuck in blame and stuck in, and this is not, I'm not, you know, I'm not being you know, and compassionate, but I'm just saying that we make friends with the inner child so that the adult in us can lead.
Yes.
Yeah. But yes, a lot of our emotions are in today that we react on are from our childhood.
I'd love for you to tell us a little more about the programming that you've got going on, which is the EMDR attached to brain spotting. And that whole
eye movement desensitization.
Yeah.
Yes. And moving and working with the right and left brain again. So, you know, working with creativity, because a lot of the right side of our brain, the creative side of our brain gets neglected a little bit, that creativity, which causes the passion in us. And so, you know, a lot of people don't trust their creative brain or the creative aspects. And our imagination can distort things sometimes and make them a lot worse than what they actually are. So, you know, this is like balancing the right and left brain. So you're not just thinking just logical left, and you're not just thinking all of creative, where you can't actually be in the moment. So it's a process. Again, it's creating safety first with a client, really just having them find a place that they love, go to their own personal space. I can do this right now. You know, if I feel a little bit unsafe, then I can go to, mine is a garden in the forest, right? It's like making a safe space within you, so that, you know, when you're feeling dysregulated or overwhelmed, that you have this place within inside of you that you can just go to and be calm with yourself for a little bit, creating safety. And then it's just working left and right brain for a bit, you know, on a subject, on a problem. It depends how serious that problem is, you know, it can be a bit longer, but we're trying to bring everything into the present moment and just working the right and the left side of the brain so that they begin to like balance both the sides of the brain, creative, logical, balance.
Do people find it easier just to block that safe space instead of try to find that safe space? Again, going back to that fear.
That safe space.
The fear thing,
right? Because sometimes that safe space holds pain.
Yes. And
that pain is scary to confront. And maybe they're scared that they can't get the answers, and they're scared to go there. We've got to, whole thing, we've got to feel it to heal it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The pain is us avoiding. That's what we're trying to help people understand. The pain you're feeling is because you're actually avoiding something. It's not that something, it's the avoiding of that something. That's what the pain is.
Yes, 100%. But I'll speak for the people that are in the construction industry. That's just how we are. We just want to get to point B with as little pain as possible, but we're basically just creating more pain by avoiding it. So why not just confront it? But it's hard for us to confront it.
Yeah. And really, you can't force someone, right?
No.
That's why they have to hit rock bottom sometimes, because the pain, just avoiding that pain to the point where it's self-destructive. And in the end, people are at such low points that they've got nowhere else to go. And then they start learning to feel, learning to see what is it that they're running from? Why is something so painful? What is so scary? And then they realize that it's actually our brain has made it a lot more scary than what it actually is. And this is where we're trying to, you know, balance the right and left. It's the right that makes things really scary, but the logical takes away the feelings. Yeah. And we have to feel it so we can heal it. So we just want to be able to know that it's nowhere near as scary. But how many times do we hear that people have to hit rock bottom? They have to run away and experience as much pain as they possibly can to know that they can't get rid of it. So they have to just be with it. And then when you're with it, slowly in all different ways, depending on who you are. And, there's so many different modalities to start facing your pain now that it's nowhere near as bad as what you thought. And for men, it's like allowing them to feel safe, that they can be with their emotions, that it's not an identification to their masculinity when they are with their emotions. It doesn't take away their masculinity. In fact, it increases who they are as a man, right? Because then they can hold things differently. They can be emotionally available and emotionally intelligent with the people around them, with their friends, their mates, the women in their life, their fathers. They can stop, there's a lot of pressure to either be like your father or to be nothing like your father, or vice versa. So it's like that journey of who are you running away from? Who are you not trying to be, or who are you trying to be? Both. Who are you trying to be? Who are you not trying to be?
Have we as human beings just learned to disconnect? And when I say that, I mean, are fewer people willing to lend a helping hand, and are fewer people willing to even ask for help? Because you need both of those groups. You need someone to step up and say, I need help, and you need somebody else to listen and hear that statement and offer the help. But are we as society moving forward becoming more disconnected from that, willing to help and ask for help?
So if you look at sort of 60, 70 years ago, I would say we're a lot worse than where we are today. Are we being more disconnected because we've now got technology, which is moving at such a rate that I feel we're losing that humanness? But then on another part, you and I are talking, right?
Yes, there's
challenges
a connection
of
still.
everything.
Yes.
But that human watching the rows in my household get off the phone, get off the phone, get off the phone. All we do is disconnect through social media. So in that way, for sure, we're getting a little bit more disconnected. We're veering off. But 100 years ago, people had to just make do. We were still in that tribal, each for their own. So I feel we're better than 100 years ago. We're better than 50 years ago. We have Are You Okay Day. We have mental health. We have systems set in for mental health. So I feel we are getting there. We might have systematized everything, and so the helping industry has changed, but it's there. So we're not as bad as we were 100 years ago. But today, if we carry on going the way we're going, we're going to be the same as what we were 100 years ago, only different.
It's so true. Yeah, very much.
We're the same. So we're in this space at the moment, like, every AI, everything's taken over. So we're making humans obsolete almost in some way. And then when we communicate, it's all through social media, that physical touch, that physical beingness, which is what we need, is starting to get more and more distant from what we're supposed to be, like touch, connection, physical talking, physical eye contact. That's what we are. We're human beings, right? We need to be with somebody and touching. So watching the generation and who we are. If you go and sit on the train or walk through the shopping center, it's fascinating to do that today.
And just watch.
It's on their phone.
I know.
It's on their phone.
Everybody's
right?
just looking down. I see it everywhere I go. At the stoplight,
so eye contact.
in the car, it's just everyone forgets to look at what's right in front of you and appreciate.
Everyone forgets to look what's right in front of them, right?
It does. And so I know you do a lot of couples therapy, and you work with couples, and there has been a huge rash of separations and failures and breakdown and discussions of kids, where the kids are going to go and all kinds of stuff like that. And that's where a lot of the conversations about suicide and addictions and loss of financial means and all kinds of things like that. Have you seen an increase in that? And how are you dealing with the couples that are coming in? And is it possible to repair any of this?
So what I see is, and this is where we'll come back to again, is we do have to heal or make peace with or accept how we're raised. A lot of the times that people come in, remember we were talking about that you're not really shown how to be in relationship.
Yeah.
You know, there's something called attachment theory, right? Where, you know, the relationship with our mother or our main caregiver between zero and 4 and then 0 and 7 sort of makes us who we are as adults, how we can be in conflict, how we can be intimate, how we can communicate. So again, we're not shown how to be in a relationship, and depending on how we were raised, the belief systems, what we saw as intimacy around us, we bring into adulthood. Then we have this idealistic version of we're going to have kids and everything's going to be fine, not realizing that kids, when you have a child, they bring out all your unhealed stuff.
Yep.
Right. So unless you've got a really healthy relationship in all, and none of us have got the perfect relationship. We're just talking about being okay with intimacy, like knowing ours, you know, we've got a lot of lower sexual lustful nature in the world, right? There's a the way we view sex and the way we view intimacy is so skewed. And so we learn sex as a child not from our parents, from a school system and social media. So how are we going with intimacy is always skewed as well. Being vulnerable with our emotions. So we're talking with men again about sexuality. We could have a whole show on this, yes. Right? On sexuality with men and creating that vulnerability. So then we have this relationship, and then we have children, and then children show us all the unhealed stuff, and then we don't know how to cope with it. And then we make excuses that it doesn't work. Underneath everything, if I come from my spiritual space, underneath everything is love. Underneath everything. So we should all really get on with each other, because we're all souls having a spiritual experience. If you believe that, I believe that, you know, or spiritual beings having a human experience, whatever you want to call it. So underneath it all is love. But it's like, are we able to lean in when things get difficult, or do we allow our pain, our fear, our insecurities to rule us, so we run? So it's like, you know, where are we going to be within that relationship? Are we going to acknowledge that there's stuff going on and we don't know what it is? We actually don't know what it is. We're just reacting, responding and projecting. Are we going to lean in, or are we going to run and go to another relationship and do the same thing all over again?
Yes.
Different, but the same, you know? And even with adultery, you know, for me, it's like, it's not that person. I've worked with couples, and, you know, when the partners have been unfaithful, and when you break it down, for me, you know, you go to their attachment. How was their attachment? How were they raised? You know, were they raised with critical parents? Were they raised with trauma? Were they raised with parents who weren't present with them? There's all these systems that help us become, help us cope in adulthood, where we become the lone wolf, or whether we become very needy and codependent on people because we're dysregulated inside. Everything is about safety and regulation within inside of us, right? How safe do we feel with ourselves? How safe do we feel with this person? So it's it's the children can bring up all sorts of stuff, and it's like whether we're willing to lean in and not run. And when things get really challenging, lean in even more. Constantly lean in. And if it doesn't work, sometimes, you know, if two people aren't willing to lean in, you have to separate. If two people can't lean in and be on the same page of going through the difficult times, you can't be in that relationship. It has to be two people working. So as much as you want a relationship to work, two people must be willing to make it work. And that means going through challenging times. So I do coaching and I do counseling. So I obviously do clinical counseling, but I also do, you know, my coaching. And when I do my coaching with couples, then I do like shadow work, and I do inner child work, and I do all this work so that they're being shown exactly with each other. They can't hide. This is all my poo. This is all my poo, right? What are we going to do with it? It's nowhere near as bad as what you thought. That's how we show up when we're feeling stressed. I run. When I'm feeling stressed, I want to hold on. Yeah. So two people, two different things. How do we compromise with each other so we're both feeling safe, seen, heard, you know? And then when we're talking about intimacy, God, this is a massive. We should just have a show just on sexuality, right? Because this is massive. It's a massive thing. Vulnerability. How can you be? You know, you have all these fantasies, these desires, these things that you're a little bit ashamed of because you've got them and you're thinking about them, and we don't tell our partner. So we have all these things, and it's like the more you are honest with your partner, the more you can work with each other. Like everything's open as long as it's consensual, right?
Do couples forget to just be courting, for lack of a better word? Do they forget to just court?
Yeah. What did you fall in love with when you first met each other? Yeah. What fun things did you do? People forget to have fun all the time. I had this one couple come into me one time and they were like, it's over. And I literally said, what have you done? Well, like, what was it you loved about each other when you first met? What fun things are you doing? They were like, we don't. You don't? What do you mean you don't? Well, we don't. We haven't had fun for ages. I said, well, okay, so go out, do something fun together. See if you actually like each other. See if you're friends. Like, just see if you like hanging out with this person first. Your values and who you are change throughout life, right? So just find that. See if you actually like being with this human being. If you like their qualities and enjoy each other's company. That's all it took.
You did at some point, and it wasn't just an evening. It was a period of your life, right? It was a period of time that you had a lot of fun with this person. So where did that go?
Yeah, and people think you can't get it back. Well, you can. We've got to have our inner child play. I do ecstatic dancing, right? That's my inner child. I love to dance. So I go out and I dance, and I'll dance anywhere, you know. My kids, I'll dance in the middle of the street. My kid's like, Mom, I'm like, don't suppress me. You will not suppress me, you know, because I'm like, no way. I play all the time. I dance, I sing, I play. I talk to everybody I meet in the street. I make a fool of myself because that's who I am, right? So play is massive. We forget to play in relationships, especially when kids come along. It's scary. It's stressful. It's money. You know, there's all these systems, but at the end of the day, you can have no money, and if you find happiness and play with each other, then you can cope with it, right?
100%. That's very, very, very true. But people forget that. They don't look at it that way. They just are looking at all the negative and they're forgetting the grateful things that they had and what they first met and who made them feel a certain way and why. And all of a sudden,
you know what I do? I get people to tell me their 5 favorite songs that they met when they first met, right? Mm-hmm. So I come in and I put art down, I put art on the table, and I blast all these songs out, and I just go write or draw what it is that you loved about this person when you first met. Right? And so I bring the music, that's sort of the creative aspect that goes into this somatic body. So it starts bringing up all the memories and the feelings. Then I get them to write it down, and then I get them to just face each other and talk about what they fell in love with. It's very simple, but it's a powerful thing because people forget. You know, they forget what it was that they loved about that person. And just because they've had kids, just because they've changed, it doesn't mean it can't work. It just means that they have to reevaluate. Every year you need to reevaluate your relationship. Every year. Like a contract. What's going on? How are we feeling? What do we need more of? What am I not getting? What are you not getting? Like, just have a meeting and do a new relationship plan every year. Like, it doesn't have to be serious. It just needs to evaluate.
Discuss
playing. Courting.
Yeah, just discuss it and have it out in the open.
Yeah, even sexuality. Like, you met this person. I'm amazed how many people could be together and they don't talk about sex. They just don't talk about it. They don't talk about what they want, their needs, what they want to change,
Why? Why don't they talk about it?
And they've had kids together and they've been together for so long because it's all the stuff gets in the way, and they're so maybe maybe there's a desire that they want and they're too scared because there's like embedded shame that they can't ask for what they want, or they feel inadequate or not confident enough. There's all these layers, but sexuality is around everything, right? The businesses we run, who we are as people, it's always based around sexuality. It's always based around our self-worth and our confidence. And so talking about sexuality and intimacy is really important. Like coming back to intimacy is huge in relationships. Just talking and touching and re-evaluating your sex life is very, very important. But people don't like to talk about it because it brings up rejection, abandonment, lack of safety.
Is it a fear of judgment?
Yeah. Fear of judgment, which creates the fear of rejection, abandonment, right? Because if you judge, that person might leave me.
But see, what's funny is that you're bringing all this up, and it's just, I'm realizing that you're going back to the avoidance. You're avoiding the fear by not having this conversation with the person. But if you actually have this conversation with the person, you may actually connect with that person on a whole new level.
Yeah. So what is going on? Mind reading, projection, there's all this stuff going on, right? And that's the difference between men and women. Men, how we process things. Men trying to fix things, and if I just do this, this might work. Again, even in intimacy, right? We're trying to get men to get out of their head, right? To not try and think how they should be, and to be 5 steps ahead of how to make that woman be in pleasure. We're trying to get them to be in their body and be in the present moment. Get out of your head, be into the body, be into the now moment, right?
Sure. I mean,
and even in relationships.
Without sounding, I don't even know how to express this, but without sounding cheesy, should men start to listen to their hearts more? Like, I'm assuming that their heart is actually speaking to them, but they're not listening to it. And so they're hearing certain things that they should express, but they're just saying to themselves, no, I can't really say that. No, I can't really do that. I shouldn't do that. Is that what's going on there?
Yeah. And also, men are the penetrators, we're the receivers. So, there's this whole, I don't like the word toxic masculinity, but, people say, oh, all men do is they want to have sex. They always think with their cock. It's like, well, yeah, because they penetrate the world. Men, when they make love, they penetrate so that they can get to their heart. So in Tantra, our breasts are our positive pole, and a man's cock is his positive pole. So we are top down, right? So we need to be, how they always like, we always want to talk. They always want to talk. Yeah, that's how we get turned on. We want to be emotionally stimulated so we can come from top down into our body, so we can open up and receive a man, right? So that our body is embodied. For men, they reach the heart by penetrating. So yes, men have to have sex to get to their heart, but it's like, what we're trying to get men is to be in their body and not avoid the feelings and emotions, and be with their feelings and not worry about rejection or abandonment. So this is why men can maybe have casual sex and not get connected to them, because it's scary, because that's how they penetrate. It's, again, safety. Can I trust this person? Can I trust this woman with my feelings? And again, then it comes back to, what are the systems he's being raised in? How does his thoughts and beliefs, how does he value himself? How is his confidence and his worthiness being supported throughout his life? And so men do penetrate. They do need sex to connect with a woman, for them to connect to their heart. That's what they do. They actually need sex to get to their own heart. So it's just been skewed, by alcohol and that numbing, and that underneath that fear of not feeling good enough, or am I good enough, or am I going to be rejected, or am I going to be abandoned? It's unconscious, though, a lot of the times, right? A lot of our stuff is unconscious.
Yeah. And then you can see how it's devastating to a man when they start losing financially and they start losing intimately, and then their world starts to unravel. And then they just start realizing that everything that I have purpose or attached to creativity and what makes me happy and what I'm contributing to is all being taken away. And then that's when they start turning into their vices, and they start depending on drugs and alcohol and other vices, or just sleeping around and all kinds of things like that. They're filling those voids, but that's, every man goes through that. I'm sure women go through that as well too, and they just experience it. So it's that fear of rejection.
Yeah. And the fear of being, who am I? Am I enough? Who am I?
Which is a scary question to ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you afraid of the question, or are you afraid of the answer?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's both. And who am I? And why are we so scared of saying who we are? Because it's not, it can change anyway. Like I can be this, and then I can do something today and I'm going, oh, now I'm this. Now I feel I look at the world differently. It can change, but we feel that if we say something, it's concrete. That's who we are, but it can change. But who are you today? And if you're not who you feel good with, who do you want to be? And where do you want to go? And, like for men, it's important as well, because they work so much, right? Because they're in the workforce so much of their life. It's different, women spend a lot of time with their children, but because men are in the workforce so long, they should be doing what they love. Now you're in the construction industry, right?
Yeah.
Do men love doing the work they do? I construction for me, it's like, oh my God, this whole women and men are equal. I laugh. I go, right, what, you can go work in a construction site? Would a woman want to be working in a construction site? Not really. You know what I mean? It's physical, hard work. So do men love being in construction, or are they doing it because it's money, or is it a bit of both?
I think it's a bit of both. I think they grow up in starting that love and passion for it. And then as life comes along, it depends on the ups and downs, as we talked about it throughout the whole show at the very beginning. It depends on at what point do you find a man or a person that's in construction. I'm sure at their down point, they may start to question a lot of the things that they found passionate and a lot of the things that they love, or a lot of the people that they loved and they cared about. They start questioning a lot of this stuff. But the thing is that they already have these answers in them. They just haven't expressed them as often as they should have. So there's that disconnect.
Yeah, and also maybe they've got themselves in a place where they're getting good money and they don't want to leave that, right? They don't want to leave that security. And how often do men ever get told at a certain point, if you're not happy, go and do something else? Sometimes they feel like they can't because they're stuck having to raise kids and provide for the family, but they're stuck in a job, right? They can't leave it.
What is it that they said? They say that a salary is what they pay you to give up on your dreams.
Oof. Yeah.
Right. So you get a lot of men.
There's a bit of truth there, right?
There is, because you get a lot of men that enjoy that stability, that finance stability. And then all of a sudden, before they realize it, 10 years goes by, 20 years go by, 30 years go by. And you're not completely fulfilled because you gave up on your dreams for this security. And I agree with you that there's a lot of people that are not financially wealthy to today's standards, I guess, but they're far happier than people that are financially well off. People that are financially well off are not the happiest bunch of people. They have their own faults. They have their own problems. They probably on their second, third, fourth, 15th marriage or whatever it is, but they're always looking for happiness and they can't even find it with all the
workaholism is.
Yes.
Yeah. Workaholism is still an avoidant, right? You're still avoiding being with your feelings and being alone with yourself. When you're a workaholic, you're beautifully avoiding.
It's just a different drug. That's all it is.
Just a different drug. You're still avoiding, still running from something or to something. Yes. And you just got to, so it's gain. It still comes back to, but, and we're asking, how do we make people how do we request that people just start with the basics so that they can feel calmer?
Yeah.
Like being alone with themselves, like breathing, like being in nature, taking a bit of time out while getting off their phones. These are simple little things that it's strategies that they can implement in their life and things can change. How does a man uh, feel safe enough to start wanting change in his relationship. Because do you find that men find it difficult to ask for their needs
Yes.
as a man?
Yes, for sure they
Yes.
do. Yes.
Right. Yeah. They don't know how to ask because how they were raised. Men have got to have it all together. Men have got to be this. They don't even know how to ask. So how do we as men and women create safety for each person to feel whatever they say is fine, and to create the safety to begin to ask what they want? I mean, oh my gosh, if I think about it, and this is not just men, this is men and women. We can get to 40s and 50s and we don't even ask anymore what our partner wants. Are you happy? Are you doing what you want? And do we empower our partners to then find something that they would love to do, especially for men, right? They're in the workforce most of their life. And so I feel it's really important, and our responsibility as a partner, to check in with our husband or boyfriend of like, are you happy doing what you're doing? Because they're going to be in the workforce their whole life. So there's some responsibility for us as women as well, I feel, to make sure that our partners are happy doing what they're doing. Do they need to change? Do they need to regroup? Do they need to evaluate if they're happy? But again, that's a lot of pressure on men that we put on, right? They have
I
to stay in the workforce and make the money.
I think it's I love that you're bringing that up, but I actually think that men will find it far easier to have these conversations regarding their professional life and their career choices. They can confront and discuss and openly discuss their ambitions and where they're going to go and what they're happy with and what they're not happy with. But yet you take those same amount of questions and put it on a personal table now. And they're not asking
Yeah.
those same questions. They're not confronting them or even addressing it, or even they're afraid of the answer behind it. But professionally speaking, they'll want to confront it and ask it and have that conversation.
But again, privately, sexually, rejection, abandonment, lack of safety, confidence, inadequacy, what's happening, especially if the relationship's been going on for a while, we get less confident, put on a bit of weight, not as healthy as we were before. We've been in the same relationship for many years. So, we get caught up, our identity gets caught up in that person. But a lot of people, if they just spent time coming back to each other and just having those difficult and even making light of it, but prioritizing it, they'd be amazed of how happy they are and how much joy is still left within the relationship, how powerful intimacy is. Like, if you can connect with your partner, everything else in the world seems a lot easier.
Yes.
Like, intimacy is everything, right? Like, we're sexual beings, we're human beings. Intimacy is very important. And I don't mean sex, I mean intimacy, like sharing your feelings, making love, enjoying sex and intimacy as part of your life. And it not just be spending time with intimacy, like prioritizing intimacy. When you do that, when you feel seen and heard, and you're in pleasure, then everything else works out and seems a lot more fun and you can cope a lot more.
Didn't we do a lot of that at the beginning? So we did that because you wanted to discover the other person. You wanted to learn more about the other person. So you openly asked questions. You openly discovered certain things. You were physical. You were intimate. So you were doing all this, but at some point it just stopped. It just stopped, right?
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I'm asking the questions. I think we stopped because we looked at life. We looked at maybe what society was thinking that we should be, and we weren't living up to that. Or maybe we weren't living up to who we wanted to. Like you said earlier, maybe we weren't living up to our parents' expectations, our siblings' expectations, our past relationships' expectations. Obviously, lots of people get into different kinds of relationships, but they're always still carrying what happened in the previous relationship, and they're bringing that to the current relationship. And then if things start going south, it's because you haven't confronted this before. You haven't really addressed it.
Yeah, there's that. And there's the fact that we assume that person is us.
Yeah.
And that instead of like reevaluating, we change. I'm not the same person I was last year.
No.
Every I would say I change. I don't even know. Some days I change from one day to the next. Some I'm 6 months, some I'm a year. But we have this, and it's as human beings, that's us being humans, right? Where we think what we see is what the other person is thinking and feeling.
Us, yeah.
And it's not.
It's not.
We're not the same. You and I are not the same. We see the world differently. We
Yes.
don't see the same. So it's like, okay, hang on, check in. And I changed from a year ago because I've been, I might carry more negativity in me because I had a crappy year, or I've been working in a different job, or I've got different friends, or I've started a new hobby, or I haven't, and I'm just sat doing the same thing over and over again, and I'm bored stiff. So, there's all these layers, but why we don't know because we never check in with our partner. Because at the beginning, we wanted to know, and we're free, and we're exploring each other, and we're trying to understand what turns each other on, but we change consistently. We're not the same as we were at 21. We're not the same. Our body doesn't even want to be the same anymore. It wants to evolve as well. So it's just just checking in. Simple thing. Go and have fun. Check in. Learn to ask. Learn to be with this is a difficult thing, and women can maybe do this a bit easier. It changes when you start being real with how you're feeling inside. Listen, I feel like our sex life has really gone down, or we're not having sex as often as we were, or we seem a bit more serious, or women maybe women are easier to start the conversation. But if we can create a bit of space for men where they feel it's okay, they start the conversation, and then men can express their feelings without being judged or being rejected or being shut down, then that's where women have to start, right? That's us as women. That's what we have to create, that safe space for when a man does open up, which is a massive thing for a lot of men. We stay quiet. We listen. We don't project, and we don't internalize and make it something that it's not. We just listen to what's being said, and then we feed back. Are you saying, is this what you mean? Not mind reading, not shutting down, so the man can then feel safe that when he does speak, it's going to be heard. It's not going to be shut down, and it's not going to be sort of made into something different, because women have a lot of things going on. We multitask even in the way we process things. We assume, we project, we gather. And so if we just allow a man to just say without judgment, without projection, for what it is, and we're different.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I didn't mean to, we're getting close to the end, and I just, there's so much more that we can talk about, and
we've just started, right?
I know. I'd love to have you back on the show and continue the conversation, but it's just, there's so much more, and I really want people that have listened to this show to understand that they can reach out to you, and they can discuss, and they can bring you on board as a coach, as a counselor, as a therapist, to help them out if they are having any problems. Because there is a bunch of us that are having these things, and they need the help, they need the hand, right? So we haven't even scratched. There's so much more that we haven't even gone into wealth. We haven't even gone into, we didn't even dive into tantrum. We didn't do any of it. But I know you have so much. I love your money mindset. I love that you're looking at different. You're basically looking at everything that we go through. Everything that we go through professionally, personally, everything that we're at different ages too. This isn't just catered towards people that have seen years of life. It's catered to a lot of people that are just enjoying life, but they still have questions associated with that.
Yeah, and wealth mindset as well. Again, comes down to sexuality and creativity, right?
Yeah.
How worthy do we feel? How do we, even for women, how do we voice? And this is the problem we are facing as women, right? As voicing our needs. But I feel for men as well, right? God, that's the feminine, being able to voice their needs without it being judged. But wealth, holding that, the scarcity, the value. If we've had trauma, I was homeless. My family were homeless for a while. I grew up with a very, very, low socioeconomic environment, and so that scarcity mindset could be embedded right from an early age, from our environment, how people talk about money, our self-worth, whether we've experienced trauma, you know, if we had sexual trauma, and men have sexual trauma as well. This is a whole conversation that we need to get onto as well, Manny, because men don't talk about sexual trauma, and it is a lot of men. There's a lot of men that have gone through trauma, sexual trauma, and they don't talk about it. I would love to do a show on that because it's really important, really important. So it's like how you're raised, the money mindset, our self-worth, right? It's always caught up in money. Like you said, men go out. So if there's been anything in there, if they've been raised in a family that of dysfunction, and then that carries their self-worth, you know, and how is money talked about? God, no one talked about money to me when I was growing up. No one talked to me about money. Not that it's a fault, but we don't, you know, it's not discussed. We don't even know what money is. I was raised in money doesn't grow on trees.
Yes.
You know,
another lesson in life that you basically just have to learn on yourself. You have to make the mistakes at the beginning on your own, and then you learn it later on. But then, we'll have to get you back on. I would love to have you back on and continue a conversation and talking more about this, but I really appreciate your time on it. I want to ask you the 12 questions.
Here we go.
So we can ask these. There's no right or wrong, and there's definitely no cash prizes, but I'm always curious about what the answers are going to be from the guests. So I do want to share with everybody. So Salayeh Self, and it's hearttorise.com and salayehself.com. All the show notes will be there so everyone knows. And then on Instagram, it's Salayeh Self. And then on Facebook, was it Heart to Rise with 2 H's?
On Facebook, yes, Facebook, like Salayeh Heart to Rise.
Yes. So please reach out to her if you guys. I know you guys are listening to the show, and I know you guys are going through things, and you don't necessarily want to speak to somebody else that's on the job site or somebody else that you work with. Reach out to her and speak to her because she will help you. All right. Are you ready for the 12 questions, sir?
Let's go.
What's your favorite construction word?
Foundation.
What's your least favorite construction word?
Pounded.
What turns you on in construction?
Topless workers in the morning.
What turns you off in construction?
Topless workers in the afternoon.
What's your favorite curse word?
Motherfucker.
There we go. What's your favorite vehicle? Anything in the world?
Oh, Lamborghini Aventador. Bring me one of those.
What color? What color?
Fuel.
I want to know color.
I like the matte. So I like black, or it would be like matte or like that orange, you know, that deep or the burnt orange.
So one disappears for the evening and one is loud and bright in the day. That's how it works.
Okay, can I have 2? All right, bring me 2. I'm having 2 then.
What's your least favorite vehicle in the world?
Racing bikes, push bikes on the road. You know, like the racing bikes.
Yes.
Oh my God.
What construction sound or noise do you love?
Nail gun.
What construction sound or noise do you hate?
Drilling.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt one day?
I had like 4 or 5 here, ranging from emergency physician to a dancer to a criminal detective. All different.
Why can't you do all of them?
Oh, I can.
You can, yes.
So I don't, you know.
What profession would you not like to do?
Plumber.
Last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at those pearly gates?
God, I didn't know. This is a hard one. Like, God, I would like him to say, you did good. You brought the sauce. Like, you did it, you know?
You brought the sauce.
Like, you made the world a better place. You brought, you brought it. But you made the world a better, like the cliche, you left the world a better place than when you started or when you arrived.
Yes. Absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you so much for waking up early and staying up for us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. And we'll definitely get you back on the show. We'll have to continue this conversation.
Beautiful. So much to talk about.
Thank you so much. All right. Don't go anywhere just yet. But okay, Angeline, we're out of here.